10 brand new 2026 models are sitting on dealer lots right now, and the pattern behind who's avoiding them is almost too consistent to be a coincidence. Buyers over 40 walking straight past, no test drive. Here's exactly which cars made this list, starting with the one causing the most walkouts. Tesla's Model 3. No gauge cluster in front of the driver. Speed, range, turn signals, even the gear selector, all routed through one central screen. For a 28-year-old raised on smartphones, that's barely a footnote. For a lifelong driver, it's a full rewrite of muscle memory built over 2 decades. Checking your speed means glancing sideways instead of down, and that half-second detour matters more than it sounds like it should, especially at night, in rain, in traffic that doesn't wait for anyone to relearn a habit. Add to that Tesla's decision to keep full self-driving locked behind a recurring monthly charge, even removing the option to just buy it outright. And you get a car that feels less like something you own and more like something you're leasing back from a software company. That's one entry. The next isn't about screens at all. Volkswagen's ID. 4, an ID. 7. This is where things get genuinely frustrating, not just unfamiliar. VW replaced physical buttons with a touch-sensitive slider for volume and climate. Unlit, unmarked in the dark, and according to widespread owner complaints and repeated coverage in automotive press, inconsistent even when you can see it. Drivers report sliding it once and getting nothing, sliding it twice and getting a jump from low to blasting. It's not a matter of preference. It's a control that simply doesn't reliably do what you touch it to do. And that's exactly the kind of daily friction a 45-year-old buyer, already juggling a commute, kids, and a dozen other things, has zero patience for. But there's a stranger case still ahead. A car that isn't confusing to operate at all. And that's precisely the problem. Rivian's R1S and R1T. Genuinely well-built trucks, genuinely capable off-road. The resistance here isn't about a missing knob. It's about the entire ownership experience being funneled through an app. Locking, unlocking, checking tire pressure, even certain drive modes, all live inside a phone screen tied to an account, an update cycle, a server somewhere. For years, Rivian shipped without Apple CarPlay or Android Auto at all, forcing owners into its own proprietary system, whether they wanted it or not. Older buyers overwhelmingly told dealers the same thing. They don't want a truck that behaves like a second phone. They want a truck. That disconnect alone has been enough to send serious shoppers back to a Silverado or a Tundra without a second thought. 3 down. The fourth isn't about missing buttons or apps. It's about paying extra every single year just to unlock power the engine already has. Mercedes-Benz EQE and EQS. Here's the fourth entry, and it's the one that turns skepticism into outright resentment. Buy the car, and the horsepower under the hood isn't fully yours. Not unless you pay for it. Mercedes offers an annual subscription that unlocks extra output on select EQ models. A fee you renew year after year for performance the motor was physically capable of on day one. Younger buyers, conditioned by app-based upgrades in everything from gaming to fitness, mostly accept it as normal. Buyers who grew up believing a car's specs were simply the car's specs see it as a bait-and-switch wrapped in marketing language. Add the hyperscreen, a curved edge-to-edge digital dashboard cramming climate, media, navigation, and vehicle settings into layered touch menus, and you've got a control experience that rewards patience nobody asked to need. That's the pattern with Entry 4. Entry 5 breaks the pattern entirely, because this time the resistance isn't about money at all. Genesis's GV60. This one is almost the opposite complaint. Nothing costs extra. Nothing is confusing in a menu sense. The problem is a single design choice. On certain trims, Genesis replaced the physical side mirrors with cameras, feeding tiny screens mounted inside the doors instead of glass reflecting the world outside. It's a smart piece of engineering, better aerodynamics, less wind noise, a wider field of view in theory. In practice, decades of drivers have trained their eyes and reflexes around a specific glance, a specific distance, a specific depth perception that a flat digital panel simply doesn't replicate the same way. Multiple reviewers and long-term owners have described a short adjustment period that some drivers never fully complete, especially at highway speed, especially when merging fast. It's not a flaw exactly. It's a redesign of instinct, and instinct built over 20 years doesn't rewire itself just because the technology improved. That's 5 cars deep, and there's a 6th one waiting that combines almost every problem mentioned so far into a single vehicle. Cadillac's Lyric. On paper, this was supposed to be the brand's reintroduction to a generation of buyers who grew up on Cadillacs their parents owned. Instead, it leans so heavily on its 33-inch curved touchscreen that basic functions, drive mode, seat heating, mirror adjustment, all live inside layered digital menus with almost no physical backup. Add steer-by-wire technology available on certain trims, a system that severs the traditional mechanical link between the wheel and the tires in favor of electronic signals, and you get a driving feel that some longtime Cadillac loyalists have described as unsettlingly disconnected, more input device than steering wheel. Dealers report a specific kind of hesitation with this one. Customers who remember exactly what a Cadillac used to feel like, sitting in the new one, and quietly deciding it isn't that anymore. Halfway through this list, and the pattern keeps repeating with a twist each time. But the next 3 cases go somewhere this list hasn't touched yet: reliability itself. Hyundai's Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6. This is where reliability enters the conversation for the first time on this list, and it changes the entire tone. Hyundai's electric lineup has posted genuinely strong reviews for range and charging speed. That part isn't in dispute. What keeps showing up in owner forums and independent reliability surveys instead is something smaller and stranger. A column-mounted shifter stock that behaves differently than the traditional gear lever generations of drivers grew up using, paired with an aggressive one-pedal driving mode that some new owners describe as almost jarring the first week behind the wheel. None of that is dangerous. It's just unfamiliar in a way that adds friction to a routine that used to be automatic. For a 25-year-old, muscle memory hasn't formed yet, so there's nothing to unlearn. For someone who's shifted the same way for 30 years, it's a small daily annoyance that never fully disappears. That's 7 cars in. The 8 strips almost everything away, and somehow that's exactly the problem. Polestar's Polestar 2. Scandinavian minimalism sounds appealing in a showroom. Clean lines, almost no buttons, a cabin that looks like a design magazine spread. Live with it, though, and several owners have reported something automotive publications have flagged repeatedly: software glitches. Screens freezing mid-drive, infotainment systems needing a full restart, climate settings that occasionally refuse to respond until the car is powered off and back on. It's not catastrophic, and updates have steadily improved things. But for a driver who just wants heat in December without troubleshooting a computer first, that gap between beautifully designed and reliably functional is enough to walk. There's one more entry left before this list turns a corner completely, and it might be the most telling case of all. BMW's iX. Genuinely impressive engineering, seriously fast charging, an interior built around ambient lighting, and a striking illuminated grille. But BMW never fully let go of the subscription instinct, even after the heated seat backlash a few years back. Its functions-on-demand system still gates certain driving assistance and parking features behind ongoing fees on select models. Layer that onto a cabin dominated by curved digital screens, and older buyers keep landing on the same verdict dealers hear on repeat. Impressive to look at, exhausting to actually own. 9 cars down, and every single one shares a quiet thread running underneath the surface complaints. That thread is exactly what ties the whole list together, and it's worth pausing on before the final entry closes things out. Chevrolet's Blazer EV. 10th entry, and maybe the clearest case of a car undone by its own launch. When it first hit dealerships, several early units were pulled back over software problems severe enough that some vehicles reportedly wouldn't charge properly or displayed inaccurate range readings, forcing a temporary halt in deliveries while GM pushed fixes. That kind of stumble barely registers with a younger buyer scrolling past headlines. For a buyer who's owned 4 or 5 cars over the decades and values a brand precisely because it's supposed to be predictable, a launch like that doesn't just cost a sale. It cost trust that took years to build and about one bad news cycle to lose. And that's the thread running under all 10 of these cars, once you step back far enough to see it. None of them are bad vehicles in the traditional sense. Every single one passed safety testing. Every one has genuine engineering wins. Some of them are genuinely class-leading in range or performance. The resistance isn't about quality in the old-fashioned sense at all. It's about a specific kind of trust. The trust that a button will do what it's always done, that a feature you paid for stays yours, that a mirror shows what a mirror has always shown, that a company will still exist to support the car 5 years. Younger buyers, raised inside a world of updates, subscriptions, and screens replacing switches, don't feel that friction nearly as sharply. Older buyers do, every single day, in small moments that add up fast. That's really the story dealerships aren't saying out loud when a decades-old buyer walks a lot and leaves without a word. It's not stubbornness. It's a specific, measurable form of friction between two very different ideas of what a car is supposed to be, a tool that just works versus a platform that keeps asking for more. If you've walked away from showroom for one of these exact reasons, drop which one in the comments. The mirrors, the subscriptions, the missing buttons. It's worth knowing just how many people are quietly making the same call.